Hello and welcome, this is Silverox, and on today's episode we are going to be making the Mass Effect M29 Insurgent Sniper Rifle. Like always, if you like this and you want to get it for yourself, and go to my Patreon at patreon.com/silveroxcraft, where you'll be able to get many other projects like this one. Also remember to comment, rating and subscribe to my channel, it helps us a lot. Thank you and enjoy the video. So the M29 Insurgent Sniper Rifle. This weapon is of course from the Mass Effect games. I believe it first appeared on Mass Effect 2, if I'm not mistaken, as a DLC for the game. I don't believe it was in the base game. It appeared of course in Mass Effect 3, and I haven't played Andromeda, so I have no idea if it's in Andromeda. I would assume yes, but no clue. But of course we're not here to talk about the history of this gun, we are here to talk about the, well, pretty much how it is made. Now of course, this, I have to put this disclaimer, just so people know, this was made to be printed as the papercraft model, so it does have to sacrifice a lot of detail so that all the pieces can actually fit together. That said, everything here is pretty much airtight. I've been through this gun several times because there were several problems I had with this, and I'm pretty confident that this will be a very durable gun, mostly because of all the overlapping parts. So talking about that, let's start by the smallest piece on this gun, which is the scope. Now the scope I have it set up with the barrels here. These are obviously the simpler parts to build, so I'll talk about these first. The top one of course being the sights for the scope. Those are very straightforward. The only complicated thing about this is I divided it into sections, as you can see. I divided it into 4 sections. The front, which is the front of the scope, the 2 pieces that compose the body, and the rear part of the scope. Now the reason I did it this way was just because, well, it's me, I like doing it complicated. Now the second part of this is the actual body of the scope that attaches to the gun. Now originally this entire piece right here was one solid structure. I was going to make it as it is. But it turns out that adding these 2 legs to the surface, it was actually quite complicated, and then the unfolding made it a nightmare to work with. So what I decided to do, I decided to compromise. I made 4 legs. Those legs are what going to attach to the body. I made a cover piece that's just going to pretty much where the legs are going to attach to. As you can see, let me pull this apart. On the inside right here, that is the surface where the legs sit on. And then after that, you get the core that supports the sides. Now this is just supported by this tiny little piece, you can see. That is the only contact surface between the body and the scope itself. Next, I just made this piece. Now this is a purely decorative piece. It is on the gun itself in the in-game model, but it doesn't serve any structural support or anything. So it's just pretty much a circle that I cut it and then extruded, pull the front part up. So nothing complicated about that. So we can hide that. We don't need it here. So I'm gonna talk about the barrel now. Now the barrel is composed once again of several pieces. Sorry, not the barrel, the underbarrel, the what I would soon be the gas barrel, but in the Mass Effect universe, Emperors don't use gas system anymore, so I don't know what this would be used for. But the barrel is simple, it's just a circle extruded into this shape. The reason why this part right here is completely it's smaller than the top one, I'll be showing you later, because it's necessary to fit inside the gun. This however is composed of 2 pieces. The reason I did this, if I bring this up, is so it fits inside this. Now I'm gonna hide everything and show you the inside. You can see the inside are slanted. The reason I did this is just you can easily slot the barrel in and it won't actually budge because of it. So that was just an over engineering thing that I did, and of course every time you over engineer something it's poorly designed, but it's the way I like doing things. Now the rest is simple. This is just a decorative piece. It's just I've tried replicating the specific parts that were on the gun. Of course, I would assume that in the in-game world this will probably be a stand for you to support the gun somewhere, but here it doesn't serve any purpose. I already talked about this piece. Is the one that's going to hold the underbarrel. Of course, the front sides, once again, pretty useless considering you have scope and no rear sights on this gun, so that gets thrown out. And now we have the two main parts that make the shroud for the barrel. The first one is this one. This is where the barrel itself is going to land in. So if I bring it up, as you can see, the barrel just slots inside here, and if I go into transparency mode, you can see where the barrel sits, and you can see right here the hole goes all the way through it. Now that wouldn't be enough to hold the barrel in place, so what I did is the other part of the shroud, which is this. This, in my opinion, is the second most complicated piece on the entire gun. One, because of its size, and second, because of the amount of work that I have to put into assuring everything did not collide, and of course the assembling process that you're going to have to do for this. That said, it's nothing that out of the ordinary. Now the front shroud itself has a larger hole, you can see, to fit the front part of the barrel, and of course the back is just that smaller one. Sorry about that. It's a smaller one for the back of the barrel. Now all of those pieces combined make quite a pleasing shape. I actually do like the way this looks. Now talking about the in-game, I don't like it because this gun is one of the lower DPS guns, but well, this isn't about in-game, this is about us building it. Now the final part for the barrel is just once again this piece. Now I made this piece a separate structure to the shrouds of the barrel, mostly because it was getting complicated as it is, and the in-game models made it so that this part protruded from the rest of the shroud. So I did what I usually do, and if there's much complicated piece that's a lot more complicated than it should be, then the alternative is to cut it into pieces. That's my model. So that makes the scope, the barrel, and the shroud. Now the rest of the gun, this is where the majority of my time went to. Now I tried to edit and add as much detail as possible, as you can see here, considering the limitations I have imposed upon myself. So the biggest one, it's this one. Now, despite how complex this part actually looks, it's not actually. The main structure of the trigger is just two flat surfaces with a small bevel on the inside where your finger and thumb are going to go. As you can see, this is one of the simpler pieces to assemble in this. So everything else is pretty much a detail that was added in, that either was on the model, on the in-game model, or that I thought it would look nice. Now these ones, let me just select all of them individually so I can show them to you. I could have just done this and hide it. You can see here, these are all the decorative parts. There is the front grip. This is where and is obviously going to go. There is this part. I don't believe it serves any structural purposes, but it's on the back of the gun as if it was a shoulder rest, but the shoulder rest is right here on the stock, so I don't know what purpose I would serve in the gun. There's this is just to add this raised detail here. So once again, just another decorative piece. There is the trigger, which is the smallest part on this entire gun, I believe. There are these two parts. These are just for the front right here. As you can see, they add a lot of detail where there would be none. If I took these off, the gun would look really empty in here, so that's why I assume tools are here, even in the in-game model. And then we come to the stock. Now, I'm missing the top part of the stock because that was part of another mesh, but on this one, the stock is composed of these, the Y piece, the big Y piece that forms the structure of it, the shoulder, and these two decorative pieces right here on the side. Once again, they're just there to add some detail. And then I just added these large, what I would assume would be the cheek rest, but that just goes on top and holds the whole thing together. So, getting everything once again out of the way, we are left with the main structure, not counting the grip of this gun. Now this was where I spent a lot of my time, mostly because of how complex all of these parts have to be. Now this, the front part of the body, this was where I ended up putting much of my time. Originally this was one piece. You can see there is a lot of detail to this, and when I actually did this completely all the way into Pepakura, when I was unfolding it, and I found out that it's actually quite hard to keep a track of what every piece is on this gun. So what I decided to do is, once again, if it's too complicated, cut it into pieces. And I ended up with this. Now this was, in my opinion, a decent compromise between detail and functionality when assembling it. What this is pretty much, I just completely sliced this in two pieces, adding the bottom structure right here. I pretty much got that enough right there, but that was the a byproduct for me assembling this in one, creating this as one structure and then having to cut it. But all this is a big surface right here with a slanted top, and this is the top, the front part of what will be, I believe, the it's not called the magazine in the game. It's a heat vent system that just ejects from the gun. Now, of course, I have it in both sides. That's because this gun is mirror from left to right. I do not believe that's game accurate, but I decided to leave it as it is because I didn't want to re-edit everything after I done that. Now this is just the front grip where obviously your hands are going to end up. This is the front of the gun when you're going to grab it, and all this is again another surface that I inlaid this entire thing into, and then I inlaid the specific cuts right here. I don't know what to call these, but they're upper metal texture that allows you to grab this easier. Now let me just return to normal. There we go. And bringing the rest of this up, you can see that this is actually the easiest part of the gun. Now, compared to the barrel, the front of the gun, and the grip, this took almost no time at all. Now, it wasn't like I did in 10 minutes, but compared to the rest, this was actually the easiest part to create. This, pretty much the backside of the ejector was just ripped directly from the front, and then I just finished the details on this side. Of course, this follows the contours that allows it to attach to the grip as the front part does, as you can see right here. They just follow the same contours that allow it to attach the grip. Once that part was done, I just had to pretty much duplicate this structure to both sides right here, and close it with the faces, and there we go. That was the simplest part to do in the entire gun. I believe this was even simpler to do than the actual trigger considering its size, but well, it's not that hard to imagine me just extruding faces together. Now this part, I actually, believe it or not, I took 3 attempts at making this part, because every time I did this I was not satisfied. Now the structure is easy. Once again, just extrude this face over, not this. If they go, duplicate this face, mirror it, do the same I did with this one. The problem was I was never satisfied at all with this looks. Now I know how this is supposed to look in game, but making it so that all these faces pretty much match as I should, I wasn't satisfied. The original one, let me just do it. This one was actually slanted right here. No, not the bottom, was just the top. Let me just select this. Was like this, and when exporting it, it turns out that these small faces are actually quite hard to glue together. So I decided, well, I'm not gonna use this look. Like, I actually like this much more than the ones that I colored there, but they were harder to put together. Then once I did that, I exported it once again, and it turns out that this piece, as you can see, is a separate one. I add this as a permanent part of this one, but I was getting trouble because this is actually supposed to be thinner than the main body, and it was just too small of a surface around here to completely do this way. So once again, I separated it and kept it as a completely separate piece. So I'm just gonna hide this because I don't need it, and I just made these a completely flat face. Now, those were the compromises I made, and after that I still wanted to edit this because I was still wasn't satisfied, but I decided no, I'm just gonna keep it as it is and move forward. Then of course was just the chic rest on the stock, which pretty much was a duplicated piece of this one. Nothing specific and nothing that complicated. Now overall, if you don't count the pauses that I have to do, the amount of time I wasn't working on it, this took about 6 hours of me working, taking my time with it, not worrying or anything. It wasn't that complicated to build, and sorry, not to build, to create. And despite all the compromises that I took, I actually do like how this looks. Now my favorite part of this gun is these 2 pieces. Now these are the most complicated looking parts of this gun, and yet this is one of the simplest ones to build. Like always, what I tend to do on these types of projects is I don't make one piece as complicated as possible. What I do like to do is I divide all the details, all the unnecessary details, into separate pieces. This right here being the main, the one when you can see that the most. Despite how much detail I managed to cram in here, all of it is actually fake. All of it is are in separate pieces. None of it is directly part of the main structure. That applies also to the shroud of the shroud and the barrel, as you can see. On that zone, if you look, it just looks like a very complicated piece until I realize that no, all of this is just a set of pieces with almost no detail at all stuck together to make the illusion of a decently complex part. Now this is just my style. I have always liked to do this, and I do not intend to change this. One, it's easier for me to model because I'm used to it. This is how it ends up working on me. It's just natural for me to do it this way. And of course, the second one, the most important one, is these are papercraft models. Now these are not the 3D models that I make for your 3D printers. These just as papercraft models, so they have to be possible to assemble in the real world. So compromises have to be taken in detail, but when it comes to the amount of parts, there is no actual limit. I could literally just fill this with tiny pieces to give the illusion of detail, but to be honest, that's what I end up doing in a sense. I mean, just the shroud here has, let me see, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and that's not counting the barrel. I have 7 pieces that give you illusion of one complete one, so you can take an idea from that. Of course, if you like this video, like I said at the beginning, you can go to my Patreon page. Now in my Patreon page I have several pledges. I have the $2 subscription pledge that pretty much that just allows you to get up almost any papercraft model I made. Not not any, every papercraft model. You go to my page, like my Kingdom and Kingblade, you want $2. You go to my Ruby builds, $2, my Eldo builds, $2, etc, etc, and etc. Now I also have a $5 pledge that allows you to get the STL files for the 3D models, the 3D printable models that I make. With that said, I do really hope you enjoy it. I hope you support my channel. Thank you and have a nice day.